William, can you tell me what's going on in politics at the moment?
There's chaos on two fronts. The first in government, with Downing Street briefing openly that Keir Starmer was ready to face and beat a leadership challenge, which fired the gun, ironically, on a leadership contest of sorts. And then more budget chaos. For the last 3 months, it feels like we've been learning about what is going to be in the budget, and some U turns have been made, but not too many, until last night when the Financial Times broke the story that Rachel Reeves was going to U-turn on raising or income tax, I should say, not insurance tax. Now that's a really big step.
Hold on,
It
is that a U-turn on a U-turn? If just be clear. I-
is U-turn on a
So
U-turn.
so
If you're
she's
taking
so
out a
she's not raising it. She's not raising.
she's not going to raise income tax directly. Some of the rates they might change, which some people will say is a sneaky way of doing it, but there isn't going to be, I think, a flat increase, as I understand.
Okay. What more have you got to say about the budget?
It is going to be a very difficult one for the government. There appears to have been more, and I'm using this as a bunny ears quote, headroom, basically, which is the sort of amount of leeway that any chancellor has. Now, that's apparently improved in the last few days overnight, which is allowing Rees to U turn on the U turn, but it's still going to be a pretty brutal one. A lot of taxes will go up. The markets aren't terribly pleased with the indecision, and also they, I think, are seeing a smorgasbord of options to raise income for the government as basically less secure than income tax itself. It's a tax many people don't like necessarily, of course, but it does raise all the money and it does so very
So
efficiently.
so basically, as far as the budget's concerned, um, taxes are going up, but not in a clear way. If it was income tax, it would have just been clear. But what you're saying is they're going to go up, but they're not going to go up in a particularly visible way where everyone knows exactly where they stand. Is that what you're saying?
That's, yeah, I think that's one way of putting it. Basically, it's going to be a lot of different taxes from various sectors of
Okay.
society. So, for example, some business rates will go up, some exemptions will stop. There will also
Okay.
be
How's this going to affect how's this going to affect Reeves and Starmer?
it's going to make life difficult for them. It makes life difficult for Reeds because the bond markets, which are now all important and were only just a couple of days ago being used as an argument not to challenge Starmer's leadership, they weren't impressed, basically. They think income tax is a safer bet when it comes to government headroom, which it is. Just needs to collect, raises more. So the market reaction hasn't been great. Reeves faces a really tough time. She's had
Hold on. Is this partially because she's sort of wrong footing them in a way, in a bad way? So originally she said income tax. No, she said no income tax. Then she said income tax.
yeah,
They get used to it, and then she says, "Oh, actually," and so she's got to please these various constituents, voters,
yeah,
and as you said, the city, and they are not liking the inconsistency, which is a little bit truss, isn't it?
it is. Also, let's not forget, Reeves has another constituency that needs, well, depending on how loyal you think they are or not, needs taking care of, which is the PLP, backbench MPs, who have fought and won a couple of battles, bruising battles over big financial plans in the last year. So she is split in many different directions. The main target is going to be have a budget that, however bad, is credible. Stuff like this doesn't help particularly because the narrative politically is really bad. And Starmer needs this like he needs a hole in the head. You know, you've had all of the infighting that has been done in public over the last 3 days. To people outside of Westminster, it looks unserious. That's what a lot of MPs are complaining about, and they're going so and saying on these shows, BBC, Pest, etc., Sky News. They're saying we hate the infighting. We don't want the infighting. We want to get on with the job. So it's another big headache that he's got to deal with. And it doesn't make him look strong or secure in a week where the only big winner, really, or the big winners, I should say, were Kemi Badenoch, West Streeting, and Nigel Farage,
Okay,
which is
but back to the budget. Just before we talk about all the infighting, back to the budget. So you've got the voters, you've got the PLP, as in like the Labour Party itself, her colleagues. You've got the banks, and then what about the newspapers? Because you were talking about narrative. What about the newspapers? Have they given her quite an easy ride until now?
no, I don't think she's had an easy ride from the newspapers at all. I wouldn't
Well, what
expect it.
what negative things have they really been saying? You mean that they're basically saying, "Look, U-turn, U-turn, U-turn on a U-turn," but apart from that, um, have they really been having that much of a go at her?
From a traditional Conservative perspective, they have. I think the charge against Reeves is that, or is that one that many Labour governments get, which is that they raise taxes and they take all your hard-earned money, that sort of thing. And in a climate where there has not been the economic growth hoped for, things have been difficult for a number of reasons. Plenty of newspapers have been pretty open about that, and there's been a lot of commentary, and you would expect it with the commentary. Many of these people's interests, isn't in paying more tax.
So what is the story with the wealth tax then? Is that being spoken about or not?
The wealth tax has been
When people
spoken.
talk about Zuckman and
Not,
billionaires and stuff like that, is why is it spoken about if she's not talking about it?
well, it's been spoken about because Zach Polanski has thrown it really into the
Yeah,
into the
but
main.
what about her?
She has not really endorsed the idea. She's never taken it seriously. Nobody in Labour's really ever taken it that seriously, apart from those on the left of the party. And the left of the party is much reduced now from what it used to be. The only time when
Okay,
it's been discussed has been that she said no, it's not. It's not a way she wants to go.
so the whole billionaires are going to leave because they say they're already leaving. They say, "Oh my God, Americans are coming here because of Mamdani," but actually, because what they brought in the non-dom things, didn't they, at the beginning when they first came
Yeah,
in? Um, but there's no thought that she's going to be putting any more pressure, is there, on rich people to leave or to pay
no.
more?
There were rumours, supposedly plans of some sort of exit tax, but they've been supposedly scrapped. I'd be surprised if we saw one in the budget, given the narrative, given the way things have gone. Just as an example, the founder or the CEO, I forget, of Revolut, moved up sticks and went to the UAE, where there are much lower taxes. So I don't think we're going to see something like that in the budget. I can't see many good headlines, and I don't think it would be predicted to raise all that much money.
Okay, and so now what about the infighting?
So on Tuesday, um, a number of senior figures at Number 10 briefed leading journalists in the lobby. Pippa Creer, Jess Elgar, Alex Wickham, Henry Zeffman, Chris Mason are amongst those. That Keir Starmer was ready to fight a leadership challenge, and that he wouldn't just step down if somebody wanted to challenge him, and that they shouldn't anyway, because it would cause instability that would hurt the economy, and also that he's ready to go have out a big fight and win if a leadership challenge came. In many of those briefings, West Streeting, the health secretary, was named basically as somebody who was causing a lot of instability, apparently on manoeuvres, and seen as somebody
So what's the
eyeing.
what's the result? What's the result of all of this? Because
The,
they said that, and then afterwards people started talking about it. So
yeah,
how has the Prime Minister put it all to bed?
he hasn't put it all to bed. He's said that he wants to. He said that if he finds the people who are briefing against Streeting, that he would deal with them.
Uh-huh.
It would take back.
And
Um, well, he isn't launching an investigation into it. So there
he
was fact.
isn't.
No, there was a lot of good in saying that. People have called for him to sack Morgan McSweeney, his chief of staff. He has backed McSweeney publicly. He is staying. The main result of this has been that West Streeting was able to look, and I'm saying this in Westminster terms, in parliamentary terms, quite slick and well prepared for his briefing or his media round, I should say, the next day. Able to fire back with humorous jabs about, not being a moon landing conspiracist and the traitors and things such as not shooting JR or whatever, or he doesn't know who shot JR, all that sort of stuff.
No,
He knew one-liners. He, in general, looked more in control of himself than the Prime Minister did of anything with regards to all this
okay.
speculation.
So
And
this is this,
we've had lots of people saying, "Oh well, when's the leadership challenge coming from? Who might be in the running?"
so what do you reckon? I think that I saw a headline that said Starmer in denial as he clears number 10 of wrongdoing over the leadership rumors. So he's clearing his own his own colleagues of doing what they've done. Clearly, they've done it, and so he looks incredibly weak.
Yes, yeah, and is an it's an astonishing own goal, really, for your own people in number 10 to essentially fire the gun on, at the very least, leadership speculation, but really a leadership contest at times.
And
Because,
about what about numbers? What about numbers? Because maybe
yeah,
there's polling or percentages. When might he go? And when are the potential windows for him to go?
so the two biggest windows are post budget. So the budget's on the 27th of November. If I've got it wrong, it's one by one day, it's 26th, 27th.
Yeah,
A budget received incredibly badly by all sides may be a tipping point. It might be a point at which a challenger decides to attack, although that seems to me to be maybe a bit more fanciful. But he is now, Starmer, an 8-1 shot to exit office this year with Star Sports, which has come in quite a bit from, it was 25-1 a couple of weeks ago because the time was basically running
really.
out. Yeah, yeah. We're in November now, and all the machinations to get it done by New Year's Eve would be tricky, unless, of course, he just
But
resigned. But
still, 25-8. That's a
yeah,
big
yeah,
change. That
it,
that's a lot more likely suddenly.
it's
And then after the budget,
really the May elections. So next year there'll be elections for the Welsh Senate, Holyrood in Scotland, a lot of English local council elections, and a couple of mayoral elections as well. Because a
if he
lot of
loses all of them, surely he's already got the script, which is, oh, local elections are always an opportunity for the government to be given a kicking. Let's see what happens in the real thing. Right? That's the standard script, isn't it? I must have heard that so many times.
Yeah, it's a standard script, but it doesn't work so well when you've had a relatively bruising set before, when your polls are in the tank, as they are, when you've had a by-election in one of your 300 safest seats that you've lost. And this was at the
Has that
point
already
in
happened?
Runcorn,
Yeah.
Sarah Podger and Runcorn. At that point, Labour were probably a little bit better, if I remember correctly.
Oh, that was the reform candidate, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and also now you would have had elections in Wales and Scotland, which Wales has been a Labour stronghold of kinds for years. It's played a part in every election. It solidifies the boundary outside of England, where Labour often finds going tough when things aren't going their way, and Scotland as well. Now, if you're being obliterated in Wales and Scotland, your only path to staying in government, whenever the next election might be, is England, which is looking difficult territory, with the Greens on the march to the left, the Lib Dems having stayed solid, and Reform cannibalising the Tories to a point where projections would have them winning the most seats in nearly all elections if you hypothetically had them, say 6 weeks on from now, and in many cases getting a majority. So if you're a Labour MP and you're keeping the faith, and many have lost it already, yes, okay, the gun was launched early, but there are a number of MPs who would like a change of leader. There are a number of MPs who would prefer to be doing this with somebody different. what is the argument necessarily for not moving? If you wait too long, um, even on a 4 or 5 year timescale, even on a full parliament, okay, yes, it'd be 26, you'd have 3 years. Um, when does it get too close to chuck a leader
Okay.
going to election?
So it sounds like May's big problem then.
Maybe it's a big problem if nothing changes. We had a by-election recently for the Welsh Senate, um, and it was a two-horse race. Plaidly
Clearly
for
nothing's going to change because there's no imagination.
it.
The most imaginative things that they do is like ID cards or going really big on assisted dying. There's I mean I think I saw today that they want to have the Denmark rules for asylum.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so any innovation that they have is just copying reform.
yes,
Um,
they also don't get credit for it. So a lot of Reform voters detest Keir Starmer in a visceral way.
that was
Uh,
funny, William. You said they don't get credit for copying reform. I love it.
and they
Well,
don't.
they're not going to get any credit for me for copying reform,
Well,
but I see
me,
what you mean. You're
but
not talking about me.
well, the thing is, there are a lot of people who wouldn't give necessary credit for copy reform anyway. Now, let's say, for example, they did that and then they drove numbers down at some point in the future. Then they may say, "Look, we are getting these numbers under control, etc." But a lot of people on the right would just simply say, "Us supporting reform has got us here." Reform would
Yeah,
very
told
much,
you so. Yeah. Okay.
and yeah,
Well, that's basically it, isn't it? I mean, all the stuff to do with the BBC and the culture war and all of these other stories. Um, at the end of the day, I think what you've just been talking about, that's really what it's all about. There's elections and that's it.
there are, but the thing is, elections have consequences, and what's happening to the BBC is a consequence of past elections. And I would also say it's definitely important what's happening there. It's definitely important. A lot of people are a lot of people falling out of love with the BBC or don't see the need for it or are upset at political coverage there. And it mostly tends to be political coverage people are upset at the BBC for that and the license fee rather than a lot of the other work it does. But
Well, there's
it's
already been a right-wing coup there, and now they're talking about a coup at the BBC. But the coup, it's not new. It's been, you know, going on for a long time. You know, people talk about Robbie Gibb now. The problem was him in the past. You
yeah,
know, when when he was running it before. That's the that's the thing. From my perspective, I appreciate we are a broad church, and there are many other views than mine. So yeah.
well, indeed, a number of the changes made to the BBC over the last 15 years are really coming home to roost. And the organisation is just more vulnerable. And some of it is, I think, the fault of previous governments. Some of it is just the changes of time. And some of it is self inflicted. It's a toxic mix. And the BBC is in a pretty perilous state, I'd say. And it's going to have a very tough next decade. I think personally, if the BBC is thriving, it's generally good for British culture. But it's going to be tough, I think. And I think a lot of people have the BBC as its news rather than all the things it does. And that's going to be a problem for the organisation going forward.
So apart from the budget, apart from May, and apart from the conversation about the BBC, is there anything else that we should be keeping our eye on?
European politics. I'm an election nerd on this, but the year after next, there's a French presidential election, and it's a very open field at the moment. Jordan Barella, Marine Le Pen are two of the names people might recognise who will be making a run at the Elysee Palace. Um, in America, of course, there's always something going on. The Trump 24/7 circus is never ending, and I think it's difficult to take your eyes off it rather than keep an eye on. And
But it's
one
their midterms in a year, right? They've got their midterms in a year.
midterms, yeah, midterms in a year, and the Democrats had a very successful night of special elections recently. What direction they carry into the new year is going to be really interesting to see. In some cases, more left-wing Democrats. I say this in the American political sense because obviously different countries, different politics.
Ah,
In,
Mamdani.
yeah, in some cases, people like Mandani, like AOC, have done better. Gavin Newsom is much more on the offensive with his communications, but in other places, you're more sort of centrist candidates have done okay in red states, and then there's going to be some gerrymandering. So that'll be particularly interesting to keep an eye on. So yeah, there's lots going on.
And then finally,
Mhm.
my favorite question, will Ukraine be absorbed into the European Union, thus sinking the project entirely?
I think it's the EU's intention to do that. I think they want to, but I think they are just trapped in a moment where even the most fervent supporters of that plan just don't have the stability. They just don't have the moment. They don't have the moment.
But the
Um,
financials would
no,
be
I think
surely against them.
that's correct.
I mean,
Well,
if you assume that accounting matters, not that I look at the numbers, but if you assume that accounting numbers, surely there's liabilities and even Trump would be saying things like, well, actually, their rare earths belong to me.
yeah, absolutely. The economies of the Western world and the European Union are not red hot right now. They've all got their own various problems. There's
But
either
they are dependent on war. Because Germany, didn't they say we've gone from not liking debt to saying unlimited debt for military?
their defense
Did you
spending is
clock that? You've clocked that, right?
yeah,
They have said.
yes, I'm familiar with your phrasing. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, they
that's not my phrasings. It's not my phrasing. Germany said we are prepared to go into unlimited debt in order to pay for military. So if they're doing that, it's a complete change of direction from the previous um, responsibility about money that they used to preach. And so as a result, in a way, maybe there is something where that actually goes with allowing Ukraine in. I mean, it's very confusing for me to see why Germany would want Ukraine to join, apart from they're our customer, they're like our new Greece. Bit weird.
I mean, again, I don't see at the moment in the near future a situation where I think, look, I think there's definitely intention of some to bring Ukraine in, but I just don't see the opportunity or the stability or the finances either to
Okay,
make that
interesting. Because they're
not.
talking about it. It's almost like America with Argentina. Or it's like or Australia participating in Eurovision. It's kind of like what is going on? This is for me the numbers they don't make any sense.
Well, for America, you could argue they almost don't have to with the sheer riches there, however their economy is doing. But yeah, it's certainly a tricky situation over there, and I think things only get trickier before they get well smoothed out if they ever do.
Yeah, I just suddenly realized maybe one reason for Trump doing what he's doing in Argentina is because he's got his eye on something. I never thought of that. I thought it was just like, yeah, bros together. But actually, maybe he's there saying, you've got a lot of rare earths that I want. Certainly Chile has next door.
He's very The thing with Trump is if he sees something he wants, he usually gets it, and if you happen to be on his good side, it's definitely a better place to be than his bad side.
Well, on that note, William, shall we sign off?
We shall. Always a pleasure.
Good talking to you.